Coach Zero.
Let's talk about a withdrawal of life support ministry. This again is the ministry that might be with the patient too, because the patient could be alert. Sometimes fully, sometimes a little bit, sometimes not at all. Just never know. But so this could be with the patient, and especially with the family and staff, like we're talking about now. There's a lot of staff ministry that goes along with these kind of traumas. They try to hide it pretty well, and sometimes don't hide it too well, and sometimes go home and don't sleep, or sometimes go home and drink too much, or say too much, or get angry too much. We all handle that. Now I want to talk about you as the minister. How do you handle stress? How do you deal with your crisis? Because you as a chaplain also will leave the hospital and you will deal with life differently. You may go home and hug your children a little tighter. You may go hug your mate a little tighter. You may not be able to concentrate. You might not be able to sleep that night. You might not be able to work on that sermon you need to work on because you're thinking about these codes and these situations you've been through. It will affect you. But there are ways that you can deal with that. Maybe talk to another chaplain buddy, another minister, talking to your mate, not using patient names, but talking to your mate about situations. Able to vent, able to talk through. This is one thing they teach us a lot about in chaplaincy training, learning to deal with the traumas and events that we have to go through. Different kind of chaplain ministries. Some of these are like hospice chaplain. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could deal with that all day long. It's just not me. Now my gift seems to be at trauma. I quote unquote love trauma. I do not like routine visits. I stink at routine visits. Just going to see a patient and talking about their sore toe, I'm not good at that at all. I have 16 volunteer chaplains that are great at that. So I send them to do that, and I take care of trauma and crisis. I mean, if there's a mad family member, just send me to them. We'll be hugging in an hour. You know? I love that, you know? And, you know, all the staff's going, oh, that biddy and all like that. Well, you know, there's just a person like you going through problems, need to be listened to. But it's like, you will have your giftedness. You might say at the end of this, Code Blue, withdrawal of life support, it's not for me. You might say, just let me do that routine visit thing. You may say the routine visit thing's just not for me. You may say, just leave me on call. So we don't have a certain mold we want to put you in. We rather want to get to know you, and that's what I do a lot with my volunteer chaplain. They come in and go, what are you good at? What do you like? What are you interested in? And then when you're ready to learn this level, I'll take you there, okay? But I'm not making you go to levels. So if you're looking at this going, this is just not me, so I'm not going to sign up for volunteer chaplaincy, just slow down a minute. There's different kind of pegs, different kind of holes, okay? So I'm going to explain it all to you because this will help you kind of overview what ministers and volunteer chaplains can do. And even if you choose never to become a volunteer chaplain, and you'll understand this for your own family. All of us will deal with this from time to time. So the patients that are on life support will be in ICU. If you had an open heart unit here, I don't think you do you? Okay. If you did, it might be called CCU, CCR, Critical Care Recovery, Critical Care Unit. They could be intubated there. Now they are placed on intubation sometime in the ER and then shipped over to ICU or Critical Care Recovery. But they will not be kept there. Even if there's a trauma going on and the patient survives, the ER doctor is going, you know, you're not going to die on my ship. We'll ship you over to ICU and let them take care of that. You're not going to pass here. So many times that will be taken over to the ICU and CCR areas so that there, hours later, days later, weeks later, they're making a decision to take off life support. Okay? So you will be in those kind of units. There's some other kind of training that I'm going to be bringing later on just to kind of get you to know medical terminology and what medical machines are out there, what do they do, what do they look like, that we can kind of build on this knowledge as we grow together. So to give you kind of an overview of this about life support, we're talking about a ventilator, you know, the crude type non-mechanical ventilator, just the ambu bag that they squeeze at maybe on the ER 911 at the scene, can also be done maybe in the ER, and you may see them doing sometime down the hallway to take a patient. But normally on a long term, we're talking about a machine that's working through a tube that they would breathe through, and sometimes a tracheotomy that's done in the throat of a surgery. But that would be a life support, a ventilator, life-sustaining medications. There may be certain kind of IVs of medications that keep the heart rate and those kind of things steady. That would be life support. An internal or an external defibrillator that would be inserted in the body, that when the heart stops, it automatically fires to. And a lot of times we don't talk about when we're inserting those mechanical defibrillators, when are we going to turn that off? We kind of go, well, you just need this. And we go get the surgery. We never talk about there's some day when I'm going to actually need to turn that off so that that won't fire again when my heart stops, when it's ready for me to go. Or treatments like dialysis that is continuous all day long dialysis, they call CVVHD. That is a kind of life-sustaining. If you were to stop that, the body would not live long. Or nutrition and hydration. I'm not talking about the food tray. I'm talking about those heroic kind of nutrition and hydration that we'll talk about, like a TPN and PEG tube and NG tube. Then we're going to talk about organ donation, because sometimes this is involved with removal of life support, that the patient is a candidate for organ donation. If they are a candidate, there's an agency that will be coming in to review the chart, review that. What is your procurement agency? LifeLink. So is ours, okay. The nurse will be alert to that, knowing when it's time. Now, every time a patient dies, you call LifeLink for corneas and things like that. But I'm talking about a patient that is already on life support, still on life support, and there may be other things that are harvested so that someone else can live. Let's talk about those. Joint Commission noted that there were 92,000 patients that were waiting for an organ in 2008. There were that many because these organ procurement agencies around the country, their rules were too strict about who could be an organ donor. The rules were that there had to be a total brain death, brain and brainstem death, proven by 2 EEGs before they could donate organs. So since that was true, they were going, there's 92,000 people out there waiting for an organ that are going to die. And you've got these patients that have good organs, but they're not yet brain dead. They may have some little bit of wave going on in the brain. They're not totally brain dead, but the rule is brain dead, total brain death, brainstem. So they changed the rule in 2008 to be either still brain death or cardiac death, meaning at the point that they die of a cardiac problem, then they would be ready on board to procure those organs and rush those to the recipients. And there's only so many hours that certain organs can be attained for that. So organ and tissue donation procurement must be called every time there's a death. And note that these tissues taken from a body will never affect the funeral, even if there's embalming. Cremation doesn't matter, of course. But let's say a patient was going to be embalmed. Let's say that they were going to take mom's corneas. You won't know the difference. Let's say that they were going to take any other organ on the body. You won't know the difference at the funeral. So there's not be, because sometimes there's feeling like, oh no, mom's going to look different or whatever. There will not be any change in that, but there's a big question sometime in families' minds of allowing that. Some organ and tissues must be kept alive until the time of procurement, and that's what I'm talking about of the patients that are kept on life support. And we're told that up to 50 people can be helped. Let's take a young motorcycle victim who has brain death, but nothing